if you encounter a client, and I've never done this because I can be cool with anybody, but if you encounter a client that just is a negative vibe there, just go ahead and just don't move forward, because you may begrudgingly do your best job and you know it's a negative person. Is it worth it? Long term. Short term, yeah, you get your check and move on. But long term, I don't know. He used to look at me funny. I don't know. He used to do this. And it's just complaining. You don't want that attached to your name. So you have to be careful. You got to make sure you establish appropriate communications with all your clients at that time, and make sure you have a feedback loop in place. If you send a message, make sure they got the message, make sure they understand the message, and just make sure everything is clear. You don't want any surprises coming to the closing table. In either case, when you enter into a brokerage agreement with a buyer or with a homeowner, excuses have no place in your business. It's simply time to execute to the best of your ability for your clients. And that's definitely what I try to do. My main job is to manage the expectations of my clients and to smooth out the phases in the home acquisition or in the listing process that add unneeded stress to my client's experience. When I first started, that was a little challenging because you're still trying to figure things out yourself. That's why you got to have a strong a broker that you can rely on. You can make the calls in the middle of the night to find out the answers you need to know. This was a lot different for me coming from my corporate experience as an internal auditor, where we just produced reports and it was all systematic, and it kind of, somebody, stockholders or whatever, they benefited from the work we did. But with real estate, you're kind of playing for keeps. These transactions they're very high on what they call the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. The base of that thing is like food, water, sleep, and shelter. So I'm taking care of the shelter part. And that's why I take my responsibilities very serious when working with my clients. In regards to ethics, it's imperative that my clients can trust me with their issues, whether financial, economic, and sometimes there are health issues that come up during the transaction that could impact the deal. We're required to keep these things confidential. I'm only allowed to share them, based on what my client's desires are. And that's how I've always operated as an internal auditor and now as a financial services agent. Agents have what's known as a fiduciary duty, which is an ethical responsibility to act solely in the best interest of another party, prioritizing that party's interests over one's own. Now, what does that look like? There's a nice definition, but sometimes it's just wise to walk away from engagement, like I said, with negative people, because information gets revealed to you at a moment's notice, and the professional has to determine whether they want to risk it. Like, I would not risk my entire business and maybe my freedom for just one transaction. There's a risk of civil suits and there's a risk of incarcerations in some instances. For example, these are hypotheticals that I've heard about, read about. But let's say that a spouse professionally, nicely comes up and say they want to sell their house. And that records show that the house is owned by two people. And they say, well, I don't know where my spouse is. He ran off. He's not available. She's not available, whatever the case. Well, I'm required to get their approval, because this does happen a lot, with the divorce rate in the country. But I'm not going to place my name on that property. I don't want to be wrapped up in all of that transaction because, I don't know how it's going to end. I don't know. I think I got some kind of responsibility where I could be taking the task. Well, I definitely could be taking the task by the Georgia Real Estate Commission. But I won't say it never has happened, because there's proof of that. I just don't want to be part of it. And here's another example. Someone is looking to purchase property with thousands and thousands of dollars without the use of a bank. Conversation is over for me. I don't want to know why. I don't want to know how. I don't want to know when. I'm gonna pass on that transaction in all likelihood, unless we're talking about Tyler Perry, Arthur Blank, and the like. There's a couple names up there where I'm like, well, why do you have $500,000 again next to your kitchen? Whatever. You got to make it make sense. I don't, but you guys call me, because I will help those guys out. If you're up there, Dominique Wilkins, but just the guy who I saw come home from work, no. No. It may be totally fine, but you got to be careful, because the thing is, once I'm before the real estate commission trying to justify what happened, at least I can say, it's Tyler Perry. It's Tyler Perry. Got the property, the big toy planes. It's Tyler Perry. But if it's like, it's John Doe. John Doe just had the money. Yeah. I know he works at blankety blank, but he's John Doe. I could lose everything. I could be sanctioned, suspended, license can be revoked, forced to do training, incarcerated. We got all kind of fines I don't have nothing to do with.